Hi, welcome. Thanks for joining us this Sunday afternoon.
Thank you for having me. My name's Elena Cazares, and I'm an MBA candidate at Mount St. Mary's. And this is a video for Business 230 on Martin Luther King.
Awesome. So, one of the things was it says, one of the chapters that you read over, it says, in the pilgrimage, King traveled to India to study Gandhi's philosophy of nonviolent resistance. How did this experience, do you think, deepen King's understanding of nonviolent activism and strengthen the moral philosophy?
Well, Martin Luther King had been a victim of violence. Um, Prior to going to India, he had been stabbed by somebody at a book signing, and he was only 5 months into recovery when he went to India. So, the purpose of this trip was to understand Gandhi's philosophy on nonviolence and also to see how he can implement those teachings and into all the turmoil that was going on in the civil rights movement at the time. So he was hoping to bring that back.
That's awesome. You know, before reading this book, I had no idea about the stabbing. We only get snippets of King's life. How do you think leaving Montgomery was another chapter that you really kind of resonated with? How did this transition reflect King's shift from a local movement leader to a national figure capable of shaping the direction of actual civil rights?
Well, one of the reasons Martin Luther King left Montgomery was because he was so overwhelmed with all his commitments, with public speaking, with being an advocate, with fighting for civil rights, that his children were fighting for time with him. And he didn't have enough time to play with them because he had speeches or phone calls or having to preach. So all of that, he realized he had to scale back, and that his solution was to move to Atlanta closer to his father's church, where he would establish a small home with his wife and I believe he at that point he only had 2 children.
So it's almost like his role that he had developed was now competing with his role as a father and a husband.
Exactly. So his role scaled down a bit um, for a very short time because he still had commitments. He was getting involved with the Kennedy campaign, or at least he was trying to, because Kennedy wanted to keep civil rights out of his campaign. So it wasn't until after a situation where Martin Luther King had been incarcerated for a warrant that he didn't know he had in Montgomery over a citation of having driving without a license that was registered in I believe in Georgia. He still had his Montgomery license or his Alabama license, but he didn't have a Georgia license, and he was cited for that. When his lawyer went to court, he didn't relay to Martin Luther King that he pled guilty on his behalf and he was on probation. So he had been pulled over, and that's how the whole thing spiraled into him going into uh, a prison camp, actually, work camp. And Kennedy found out about it. JFK found out about it when he called his wife. And she relayed that he was in prison and she was pregnant and she was concerned about him. And he had this brother, Robert, intercede for him and try to get him out of jail sooner.
That's when it definitely pays to have friends in high places. Right?
Yes, he indirectly got involved, but, he ended up, partaking in the civil rights movement after he won the election because he didn't want to alienate his voters.
That's awesome. So I'm going to pivot a little bit. If you had a vote to say whether Dr. King should be considered a modern founding father, what would it be and why?
I would say he would be a founding father because he, had the same challenges as the original founding fathers. He wanted to get away from the old ways, where ELU was involved with the United States. They wanted to break free. Martin Luther King wanted for everybody to be respected and treated equally. He didn't want to be a second class citizen. He wanted everybody to have the same kind of working rights. the same kind of rights, just to be human. And the violence that was being inflicted by the Southerners was just so horrific. There was so much anger, and it kind of resonates with what's going on right now with the MAGA movement because, 60 years ago, this battle took place for us to have equal rights. And now everybody's fighting for the same thing again. And, but with the founding father situation, he really believed that everybody should live in peace and harmony and love and not have to struggle for it.
That kind of segues into the last question I have for you today. And it's just that, is there one thing from the book, whether it's a quote or a concept or um, just, the way that Dr. King lived, the way that his wife lived, just anything from the book that really resonated with you that you're going to implement into your current day to day life?
Yes, what resonated with me was like he legitimately and honestly wanted people to get along. He really wanted people to love each other. He really wanted people to respect each other, and to not have it be a struggle, to just be a human being. And I treat people like that now, and it's it's just like I said earlier, it resonates with what's going on. People have to fight to prove that they belong here now, and it's sad that we go backwards before we can go forwards, but that's the one takeaway that I had is that he really wanted people to love each other, and here we are now, with the MAGA movement and people being, pointed out and made to feel like they don't belong. And, I think once, we survive all this, we'll go back and do lessons learned and reincorporate his teachings because they need to be looked at again.
I love how you frame that going backwards, before we can go forwards. So I don't have any other questions for you. You've been amazing. Thank you for spending time with us today and giving us your breakdown of King of Life.
Well, thank you for having me.